I'm out here doing the Lord's work, okay? God is pleased with me whether or not y'all are.
That's a bit arrogant. No, you're not doing the Lord's work, my friend. That is not the Lord's work. Oh, God. Okay, first of all, somebody jumps me, they're likely to get shot or stabbed. So let's really understand the danger of what was done. All right, guys, we're back again with the PEM podcast, and this is our second episode without the disguise. And yeah, we've navigated the policy restriction issues, lost a couple channels there, completely deleted without warning. But I think we've got it figured out. We're going to be careful with advertisements that we're doing for the website Psychedelis. That was one of the things that got us into trouble. But yeah, we've moved on now. So no disguise. My name's actually Lou. And I am the founder of Psychedelis.com. The channel, just to remind everyone, is about ego management. That's really what the focus of all of this really is, in the content that we provide here, in the commentary, at least the perspective on the commentary that I provide, is about ego mitigation. And ego requires a definition, and some people have different definitions, and then that can run into debatable topics about what's what. Some people think that ego is a necessary part of one's ability to survive and live in this life. My definition of ego does not include that aspect of the rational mind, and so I don't agree with that statement, but that's based off of a definition debate, really, more than anything. So yeah, my perspective on ego is the particular definition of ego I'm using is what's wrong with our world. It is what causes pretty much 99.9% of all the suffering on this planet. And so my belief is that we have a evolutionary stopgap that we have to, a hurdle that we have to overcome, otherwise potentially face an extinction event and go through another iteration of evolutionary development. At each evolutionary critical moment in the history of the Earth, we've seen an increase in sophistication in the awareness and consciousness of the biological beings that then, emerged. Of course, it takes millions and millions of years for that. And so I believe that our issue as a species, our great challenge is going to be to get past this particular phase of consciousness, this egoic interaction with each other and our environment. So just a reminder of what this is about, and interactions amongst each other, our own relationships, our relationship with our environment, our relationship with mind-altering substances, our relationship with sexuality, our relationship with technology, all are impacted by this idea of ego. So wanted to remind you guys kind of where I'm coming from with that stuff. We're going to jump into some videos, and then we're going to do another live. We've been doing the TikTok multi-guest live, which went pretty well. It was our first last time. And yep, looking forward to doing it again. We'll ask some sort of controversial topic. I think we're going to be talking about mind-altering substances today. So yep, we'll jump into these videos and see what we got. Here we go.
Yo, don't touch my rod. Don't fucking touch my rod.
Trespassing on private property.
Don't threaten us.
You're trespassing on
Don't
private property, young man.
We're waiting for the police to come.
You don't need to get out of here. Leave.
No, we're going to talk to them.
Leave.
We're going to talk to them. You threatened us.
He's our president.
You threatened
that phone
us.
to go in the lake, young man?
You threatened us.
You want that phone to go in the lake?
Back away
Walk
from
out of here,
him.
boys.
Back
Walk
away
out
from
of
him.
here.
Back
Don't
up.
test me.
Back
Walk
up from
out of
me.
here.
Back up from me.
Get out of here.
Back up from me.
How'd I take that phone and put it in the lake?
Yeah, now I'll press charges.
For what?
Like assault, what?
For what?
Assault.
Yeah, I'm not assaulting you. Get out of here.
We're just going to wait. We're not going to mess with anything.
Get out of here. You're fishing in a private lake. Get the hell out of here now.
The cops are coming. We're just waiting for them.
Okay, good.
Yeah, we're waiting for them.
You know
just
what? We're
waiting
going to
for them.
prosecute. So your parents are going to be real proud of that.
All right.
We're going to prosecute you, and you're going to pay all kinds of money because you're being a dick.
I'm not being a dick.
You are.
Sir, you're the one yelling.
You're on private property, young man.
I'm just
Get
trying to
out of
fish.
here.
You threatened us and you walked up
Get
on me
out of
and
here.
hit
You're
me.
on private property. Get out of here.
Don't touch me.
We just said we wanted to
Touch
wait.
me. You touched me earlier.
Get out of here.
You touched me
Get out of
earlier.
here.
You touched me earlier.
Balled up his fist like he's going to punch, what is that, like a 13-year-old boy, 12-year-old? Yeah, well, that's exactly what we're talking about, guys. That's ego right there. There's no situation that I could think of where it'd be called for to speak to some young kids like that, or to be aggressive physically in that way towards some young kids like that. You know, and understanding whatever the laws are there, I don't know what's going on there. This is where I'm always cautious with things as far as understanding the environment. What are they fishing in? When we were kids, we used to like to go fishing in the local golf course, you know, for carp and things that are in the golf course ponds. And of course, if you got caught doing that, you get chased off. And we knew we weren't supposed to do it. And, you know, it wasn't that big of a deal. It was just something we did for fun. And we knew to leave if the authorities showed up, or, you know, whomever it was that kind of ran the country club that was there, that was close by where we lived, and went and did that. We never had anyone approach us that way, ever. You know, they would tell us to leave, and we would leave. So, yeah, that situation there for children, I don't really have advice for those kids. I think they did a pretty good job. Filming him was definitely the right thing to do. Clearly, he is completely possessed by ego. The guy's completely unhinged and out of control. Male Karen is a good way to put that. And, you know, when I look at that, the question is, like, how do you diffuse that? Because one of the premises for the art of ego mitigation, sometimes I'll refer to it as the art of stalking, which is a Toltec term, is some form of de-escalation and having the individual feel heard on some level. But it's much more complicated than that, because ultimately this art of ego mitigation becomes a type of manipulation in which you're attempting to get the person to wake up to how insane they're really being in that moment, and perhaps others. And in this situation for children, I don't know what they could have done differently. The breaking of the fishing rod was pretty amazing. Just wow. So I wonder what the results were when the police arrived. I'm assuming the police did arrive. And yeah, it would have been interesting to see kind of what the results were there. But yeah, for de-escalation purposes and how to manage and deal with someone like that, that person was completely unhinged. It's downright mental illness, if you ask me. It was what we witnessed there. So I don't know what all of the answers could be there, because I'm looking at it more from a perspective of, like, as an adult, what if I'm not going to go fish in someone's pond, but, you know, as an adult now, you know, I did that when I was a kid, but let's say I was in that situation, how would I deal with this guy? You know, he gets really physical almost there. A couple times actually. I wouldn't let him in my you know, within the range to strike. So that would have been a self-defense consideration there for me. You know, I'm not going to let him get within my reactionary zone. So that's a consideration. But I also don't want to escalate anything. So you know, I'm going to try and ask questions. I might ask, hey, you know, what's going on? Why are you so upset? What has got you, you know, over the moon about this? There's a lot more things that are far more serious in life than someone fishing in a private pond. So, yeah, I mean, exploration hypothetically on how I would deal with someone like that is interesting, but hard to really flesh out just in my head, because you just don't know how people are going to react. But ultimately, you want the person to get a sense of, you know, that you're actually paying attention to them, and you're not just thumbing your nose at their quote-unquote authority, even though he may or may not have any authority in that situation. That's part of some of the ego mitigation. In some cases, is actually feeding another person's ego at your own ego's expense, which is why one of the number one rules is to mitigate your own ego first. But yeah, that was really insane. insane individual there. That's just too bad for someone to reach that advanced stage in life and to really be that just nuts, that just thrown off center, completely unhinged individual. It's just a sign of, I think there's a lot of people out there like this, right? That's why we have the whole Karen idea. There's a lot of Karens. So yeah, how do you deal with them? Don't escalate, try to make them feel heard. They're miserable, unhappy people. I'm not saying to pity them because I don't actually agree with the idea of pitying anyone, but having some sort of compassion for them can help you with your own patience. So yeah, that was insane. If I was, the kid's parent or something like that, we would have an issue. But again, I wouldn't advocate for any type of aggressive way of approaching that individual. I might even set them up. That could be another thing that happens with kind of ego mitigation. Sometimes people deserve consequence. So maybe I would, figure out a way to get him into some trouble so he could face some consequences. Because, how dangerous is that guy? Was he prepared to hit a 12-year-old boy? He balled up his fist there. So, that guy needs a little bit of a reality check. So anyway, yeah, lots of nutty people out there. That's why we do this channel, honestly, people like that.
To the 7-year-old girl who had to watch me and my brothers jump her daddy after school, I'm sorry. I know that was probably a traumatizing experience for you, but we kept asking you to stop bullying my daughter and you wouldn't listen. We sent letters home. We even had a meeting with you and your parents and you wouldn't listen. So now you know your actions have consequences. And since you too young to receive those consequences, you had to watch your daddy take those consequences. Get some therapy. You'll be all right. A lot of y'all keep asking why I didn't fight this man one-on-one. And why I got my brothers to jump him in front of his 7-year-old daughter. And the answer is simple. Life is not fair. You get jumped by responsibilities every day. Bullying is not fair because you're picking on somebody that's essentially a weaker vessel and that's smaller than you. So I wanted to make sure she saw what it looked like when a fight is not fair and you don't have no choice but to let somebody jump you. So she could get the concept of what she was doing. Sometimes kids learn from what they see and not what they hear. So I wanted it to be a visual experience, okay? I'm out here doing the Lord's work, okay? God is pleased with me whether or not y'all are.
That's a bit arrogant. No, you're not doing the Lord's work, my friend. That is not the Lord's work. Oh, God. Okay, first of all, somebody jumps me, they're likely to get shot or stabbed. So let's really understand the danger of what was done. Now, I don't know about this content. Maybe a lot of people know about this. Sounds like it's something that probably went pretty viral. I imagine a lot of people may be aware of that circumstance. I'm sort of surprised he's not in custody right now. It's not legal to jump anyone under any circumstances. So that's pretty wild there. Did he teach the intended lesson? Does he feel like he got his point across to the young lady that apparently was bullying his daughter, I guess? I doubt that very much. What happens in circumstances like that is it hardens people, even young children, to what violence is. And it can go in a couple different ways. It can create trauma in which now you have someone who's just scared all the time, or it can create rage and anger in which you have someone who's going to end up more similar to what I went through. They're going to arm themselves, they're going to be ready for trouble, and they're going to be ready on another level that could be deadly. There's nothing really positive in what happened there from the way that guy is speaking about what took place. Again, jumping is a discrepancy of force there. I believe there is justification depending on what happened and how severe the discrepancy of force was, that there could have been justification for use of deadly force on the part of the other girl's father. So, yeah, it's just really stupid, actually, that's the choices that this grown adult made as far as how he's going to settle things. That's what the art of kind of ego mitigation and what I refer to as the art of stalking addresses. That is probably not the effective way to go about teaching the lesson that he's trying to teach. And all it really was a direct show of force. And direct shows of force, like exhibitions of force, have an equal and opposite reaction. They don't tend to lead towards a higher level of awareness and consciousness for all, it typically leads to some sort of trauma and anger and rage and equal and opposite force reaction, kind of Newtonian reaction. So I don't have any positive viewpoint on that. I don't feel at all like that's the way to go about that. And I don't think it teaches children any good tools for, managing in life. So yeah, that's terrible example right there. It could have went really poorly, and had it been the wrong individual, like I said, plenty of friends of mine and people I know are concealed carry people. Could have easily been a shooting. Could have easily ended up with dead people in front of 7-year-old children. And I don't think it was even that much better than that in the end anyway. Someone was a victim of violence in front of their child. It's mind-boggling that someone would think that that is a positive way to go about things. And I guarantee there's a lot of people who probably supported him, probably some other people who were completely on the opposite, didn't support him. But, what's the middle ground? Like, I'm not saying that this should go on, just left alone to run its course. But I think you have to be very creative in how you address circumstances like this, especially if the school system in place, the authorities, what have you, are kind of have their hands tied saying they can't do anything. How are you going to address a child being bullied where the parent of the bully isn't, really intervening in the circumstance and then addressing that? And, not all kids listen to their parents, let's face it. There were plenty of times when I didn't listen to my parents. So, how would you address that? And I think there's maybe a multi-layered approach to that, including discussing self-defense tactics with your child, discussing psychological tactics with your child, working through the scenario, with multiple variables in place and having to manage that, because that's life, right? There's a lot of bullies in this world, all kinds of bullies. There's many different types of bullies, people that are bullies at work, people that are bullies within authoritative bodies like city municipal governments, people who are bullies in healthcare, people who are bullies in law enforcement, right? There's bullies all over the place. So it's a skill to have to learn how to manage and deal with these individuals. So just stepping in and beating up someone's father, I think is a pretty, it's just really primitive, I guess. Primitive and not effective. It's very Neanderthal in a way, and I think it's very short-sighted. Right? I don't even. You never know what the consequences are. It was a young lady, I guess, that witnessed this. I don't know. There might be some kids out there. The way I grew up as a kid, if you did that to my dad, I might hold that for a long time. I might go get a gun as a kid because I wasn't, an idiot, and I might come and find you and shoot you. That could actually happen as a child, not being too smart, right? Not understanding the consequences of all your actions, having rage. I was raised in a pretty rough area where we could have had access to weapons and things like that at a pretty young age. Like, this whole thing is just really not wise. It's just not the way you go about this. So yeah, I think self-defense, I think psychological tactics, looking for different ways to diffuse the situation, looking for ways to set the bully up, maybe hidden cameras, even catching the bully in the act, and therefore then having irrefutable evidence that could be used with the authoritative bodies at school or what have you. I'm not going to sit here and brainstorm all the ways, because that's the one thing I will say. The problem with this art that I'm discussing here is it takes enormous effort and focus and time to be creative enough to avoid things like beating someone up. That's the point of this, is to avoid beating someone, to avoid an all-out, head-to-head contest that leads to someone getting hurt and leads to no awareness for anyone, and just feeding people's egos. The effort it takes is enormous, actually. You have to be very creative, and you have to spend a lot of time trying to figure out, like, how am I going to solve this Rubik's Cube? And you first have to have the awareness that it's doable. So there's these psychological factors and these rules to the art of stalking. One of the rules is never be the boss. So what that means is you're never seen as the person who is the source of the consequence, right? So you have to find a way often to avoid being seen as the person who has initiated the consequence that, in this case, for instance, maybe has an effect on the bully. Because when you're seen as the source of where the negative experiences come from, then there's a resentment. And the resentment becomes a placeholder in the way of consciousness and expanded awareness, which is what the issue is. We have someone who's unaware and unable to have consideration for other people. We look at it in a lot of the Western world looks at it like it's a refusal, or it's there's something, very intentional about the way that people are behaving, but not all of it's intentional. They don't have the awareness to understand the full scope of their actions, and I don't think this father here in this video has the awareness to fully understand the scope of his actions and the risks that he took. So. That's what this whole channel is about, is choosing actions that lead to expanded awareness and consciousness for all involved, and definitely avoiding violence wherever possible, because violence very rarely leads to increasing consciousness, because it leads to resentment, and it leads to holding grudges, and it leads to desire for revenge. And those things all get in the way of actually learning a lesson from something. So I think it's a terrible way to proceed. Anyway.
Tonight with a major update on a story we first told you about at 6. The attorney for an East Texas Sheriff's Office joined East Texas Now within the last hour, responding to newly released dash camera video of a deputy-involved shooting in Rusk County. You will hear some of that interview at the conclusion of this story. Earlier, a federal judge lifted the order preventing the release of the video that shows the shooting that ended with the death of Timothy Randall in 2022. We are warning you, most viewers will probably find this video disturbing, and for that reason, we have chosen to edit the dash cam footage to freeze it at the moment the deputy actually fires his gun. Again, in a few moments, we will bring you the response tonight from the attorney representing the Rusk County Sheriff's Office. But first, we start with KLTV's Lauren Tier, who takes you through the incident.
A protective order barring this video from being released to the public eye is no more. A hearing last Thursday ended with the federal judge saying he would consider lifting the seal, and today he made his decision. An attorney representing the family of Timothy Randall released the video to the media. It started as a traffic stop. Sergeant Shane Iverson pulling Timothy Randall over for allegedly running a stop sign on September 14th, 2022.
Good evening.
How you doing, sir?
Good. I'm Sergeant Iverson, the Rusk County Sheriff's Office.
Yes, sir.
The reason I pulled you over is you blew that stop sign back there.
No, I didn't. I came to a complete stop with that stop sign.
All right.
I mean, I did. I came to a stop.
No, you didn't. So.
What do you mean? I mean, what do you mean?
You step out of the vehicle for me.
Randall exits the car when he is patted down and asked to put his hands behind his back.
Officer, please, can you tell me what I'm under arrest for?
Yeah, stop it for just a second. No, okay, I might want to look at that again. So, my question is, do we have dash cam footage of the supposed running of the stop sign? That would be my first question, is do we have probable cause for the roadside stop? Right? Was there a law broken that we have evidence of? So that would be my first question. I just want to say that right now, because if we don't, that starts to create all kinds of problems for this circumstance here. So, yeah, let's. And then what's his reason for getting him out of the vehicle? The cop can ask him to get out of the vehicle, but usually it's for officer safety, so he has to be able to articulate that there was some danger in leaving this guy in his vehicle. So I'm not the attorney here. I subscribe to the Civil Rights Attorney's channel. I think he does a way better job than I would on this. But those are the things that I've learned along the way, and so I would want to know if he really ran the stop sign or not, and if the dash cam shows that. So, all right, yeah, let's see what's next.
Randall exits the car when he is patted down and asked to put his hands behind his back.
Officer, please, can you tell me what I'm under arrest for? Please, please.
Get out.
shot him? Wow, that doesn't seem justified at all.
Just 45 seconds after the gun was fired, Sergeant Iverson approaches Randall's body lying on the ground.
Dude, you okay?
No response from Randall can be heard on the video. Iverson then calls dispatch.
You okay?
Hey, I need an ambulance. Call everybody. I've got a shooting.
After a DPS investigation, Sergeant Iverson was no-billed by a Rusk County grand jury, meaning he will not face criminal charges in the death. A death report states Sergeant Iverson was in a tactically compromising position on the ground when he fired his gun. Attorney Joseph Oxman is representing Randall's family in a civil lawsuit filed in 2023. It claims wrongful death and a civil rights violation. He said after the hearing that law enforcement has tried to portray the shooting as an act of self-defense, but he argues that the video shows otherwise.
I think once the public sees this video, they will clearly show and understand that Sergeant Iverson was an out-of-control police officer who murdered an individual on the side of the road without any probable cause whatsoever.
Lauren Tier, KLTV 7 News.
Late this evening, the attorney for Rusk County Sheriff's Office, Robert Davis, joined East Texas Now to refute the claims of Attorney Oxman. Davis says Sergeant Iverson believed he felt a weapon at the pants of Randall, and that influenced his actions and reactions during the incident.
With his right hand, he placed something down his pants. The officer, and you can see it on the video, reaches over. He's got the guy up against the car, reaches over and feels the item that is in the pants of the individual. Then he, to get a better feel of the item, placed his right hand down the front of the pants to feel the item again. It appeared and felt to be a North American .22 caliber pistol or something similar.
He felt it to be a North American .22.
Drug dealers and drug users are known to carry. Oftentimes, they're easy to conceal and they're small. At that point, the deputy tried to control the hands of the subject. The subject pulled away from him repeatedly, refused to let the officer control his hands, gave repeated commands to the individual, then took the individual to the ground.
Davis also confirmed in the interview that a crack pipe was found in Randall's pants, an object he says is similar in dimensions to the aforementioned .22 caliber pistol. The Rusk County District Attorney's Office has still not returned our requests for a comment. The attorney for Randall's family says he hopes the release of the video prompts federal authorities to look into the case and consider federal charges.
Yeah, that's unfortunate, guys. This whole cop violence thing really it is such a nasty situation with the way that police cover their own, no matter what the action is, no matter how ugly and bad the action is, the police cover their own. And I see them as a gang. I think many people see them as a gang. I've always seen them as that. I grew up around gangs, and the police always struck me as kind of the same as the gangs I was around that were just the street gangs. It's very, very similar thing. I don't see a justification for what took place there. It seems to me that there should be an objective, reasonable, ascertainment of a threat. So it should be objectively reasonable that anyone in the situation would have feared for their life. And I didn't see anything that would have made me fear for my life. He claims he felt something in his waistband area there, I guess, in his appendix area that turned out to be this crack pipe. If we just allow everyone who shoots somebody to say, I grazed something in the guy's waistband and assumed it was a gun and shot him, I think we'd get into some serious problematic territory there. He clearly had something in his waistband. It turned out it was not a weapon. That, to me, is a major problem. And it seemed like throwing him to the ground also seemed premature to me. Of course, it happened very quickly. So I saw the hands where they were. He seemed to protest a bit, like, why am I being arrested? So maybe he resisted a bit there for a moment and didn't put his hands immediately behind his back. but the use of force should be equal to what's being presented, and there wasn't any deadly threat being presented from what I could see. The other thing that the civil rights attorney is so good at, and it's because I watch his channel a lot, I've now begun to understand, is the 3 Graham factors, which are from a court case with, I'm assuming Graham is one of maybe the plaintiff or in the circumstance. I don't know the actual name of the case, but I know that those are the things they look at when we're talking about use of force cases with the police and looking at excessive force. The first Graham factor is the severity of the crime. The severity of the crime in the situation was not stopping for a stop sign, which I think is questionable if that even happened, because again, we need the dash cam footage that proves that the guy blew a stop sign, as I definitely don't trust this cop. And I don't know why we live in a society where cops are just trusted. At this point, we've seen they lie quite often. So anyway, but point is, assuming that a stop sign was run, it's a traffic infraction, and so the severity of the crime was quite low. We're not talking about a serial killer here. We're not talking about an active shooter. We're not talking about a rapist. We're talking about a stop sign that wasn't stopped for, that leads to the killing of someone. The second Graham factor, I believe, was he actively resisting? And I think that is up for debate, that maybe there was some active resistance, or and I don't know how they classify passive resistance. I think passive resistance might be just trying to get away, or just like not putting your hands behind your back. So I think that might actually have been a bit of passive resistance there, which again would not warrant a deadly use of force. So the resistance level was pretty low from what I saw, and this cop just went ham. And then the last Graham factor was what was the threat to the public at large or the officer himself. And again, the threats I think were quite minimal, especially as we found out there was a crack pipe and not a gun. Yeah, I think it's complete bullshit what we just saw there. Yeah, it's sad that someone died at the hands of some unhinged cop who just thinks he can shoot people. And people need to get more outraged by this and start showing up at their city council hearings and start demanding that these guys face criminal charges, as well as lose their qualified immunity, as well as lose, whatever wealth that they've gained through being law enforcement. That's a sad video right there.
You are taking up valuable resources that could be helping the city.
Did I call you?
Because we are focused
Great.
on you.
Right. Here's how you can end this.
So I think that's important.
This is how you can end this.
What do you need?
Go back to your job and mind your own damn business. Who are you?
I don't know. What are you doing?
You don't know who?
Are you taking close-up pictures of the inside of the car? You can't do that, okay?
Says who?
Says me.
Who are you?
I don't know.
Well then,
okay,
get lost.
You cannot be taking pictures of the inside of these cars.
Watch me.
Yeah, good. Good. Very legal.
You cannot be taking pictures of the inside of the cars.
Who are you?
Who are you?
Who are you?
Who are you?
You come over here all big tough guy?
Hey, you can't be taking pictures inside.
Says who?
Says me. It's a police car, okay?
And you, who are you?
I'm a sergeant, okay? I'm a supervisor.
Yeah?
Okay, yeah.
And
you can't be here.
And you can get lost.
It doesn't work that way, my friend.
How does that work?
Hey.
What? You're gonna get in my face like this?
Go find something else.
You think you're gonna intimidate me?
I'm intimidating you, man.
Then what's the problem?
I don't know. I'm wondering what the problem is with you.
You came over here all tough guy.
I'm wondering what the problem is with you.
There was no problem. What am I doing?
You can't be taking pictures.
Says who?
Says me.
What law?
I don't know.
Exactly. So get lost, tough guy.
It doesn't work that way.
Well, how's it gonna work? Why don't you call your bobbies over here? Why don't you call your lieutenant?
No.
Other sergeants?
You show me out in front of the precinct with
yeah?
taking some pictures of inside of the police.
Dumb guy.
I'll take it.
What a dumb guy. Taking pictures of the inside of the vehicles that are public property. I'm on a public sidewalk taking pictures of everything that is open, visible from my eyes, okay? Which is First Amendment protected activity, and the tough guy shows up here and tells me I can't take pictures.
Taking pictures of the inside of the car is
you too? You want to get on my case too about taking pictures?
I'll be out at
Watson?
Did.
And you?
Did.
Edwards?
Yes, something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
Okay. What are you doing taking pictures then?
What am I doing taking pictures? What's the problem taking pictures?
Of the inside of the vehicles in the computer.
What law is that? What am I breaking?
I don't know. That's called private property. You can't.
That's private property. Come here.
You can't.
Come here, Sergeant.
You can't take a
Wow.
picture.
Come here, Sergeant. Come here.
The ignorance is crazy.
What it says over here?
The outside, if you like.
What does it say?
I don't know.
What does it say?
You tell me.
You don't know how to read? Any of you guys know how to read?
What's your goal, sir? What do you need today?
You're my servant. That's my property. Everything that's on you, my property, except your personal effects. Okay. This building, my property.
Dean, your level of engagement is going to make the police be here. And I do think that's your goal. I literally think what you are doing is trying to create a scene to get police attention.
Y'all feel about auditors, but with me personally, it just be funny because the fact that this officer said that you're doing this just to get our attention, yeah, they're standing there wasting time and giving this dude all their attention. It never makes sense. And I know some people are, oh, you know, auditors, they don't got no lies. But at the same time, it's like, bro, the fact that it's so easy to attract cops is just showing how bad their ego is. So at the same time, it's not that bad to have auditors.
Reported on
Ask her. I was walking down. I was walking on the. That's right.
You are taking up valuable resources that could be helping the city.
Did I call you?
Because we are focused
Great.
on you.
Here's how you can end this.
So I think that's important.
This is how you can end this.
What do you need?
Go back to your job and mind your own damn business.
You need to not point your camera inside a police.
So a lot of layers there, because from the perspective of what I discussed at the opening of this episode about ego mitigation and management, that would not be the way I would approach these cops, because but where I said a lot of layers is for a reason. I don't know that helps those cops achieve another level of awareness about their job and their position to supposedly protect and serve, which seems that they rarely do. It may not be. I don't believe it's that effective in getting them to change their attitude. However, there is another side of this that I think actually could be a valuable side of this, is sort of trolling cops on purpose to see how egoically motivated they are, and clearly they are very egoically motivated, and to see that, wait a second, these people that are being employed as law enforcement officers don't belong in this position. We should have people who are law enforcement officers should be the most humble of our population, should be the ones with the most humility and the ones most willing to de-escalate circumstances and situations, instead of walking around with all this bravado the way they do and their arrogance. And then this guy has the nerve to just say he doesn't know the law, which is amazing, and yet he is attempting to enforce something. And I would say that amounted to intimidation. That's exactly what that was, because they don't want you filming the inside of their vehicle, yet, believe me, they have no problem filming the inside of your vehicle and looking all throughout the inside of your vehicle and telling you can't have a certain level of tinted windows, right? Too dark a window is illegal. So, it's quite a double standard there. But legally speaking, they are subject to the same laws of being in public, and that they are not afforded any reasonable expectation of privacy in public, including the interior of their vehicles, where there's visibility through the windows. So the police in this situation seem to not understand that. But I think there's a couple of different ways to approach this. So if you're a troll and you're just trying to troll the cops into getting a reaction, and that's to prove your point that they are egoically motivated and really should not be in the position of authority that they're in, then this serves that purpose, and I'm okay with that, because I think on some level maybe that should be an intentional aspect of us assessing our law enforcement to see if they're able to maintain their humility and keep their emotions in check. On the other side of that, if your intention is to educate or spread awareness to law enforcement and get them to actually consider your point of view of, hey, this is public property that's paid for by taxpayer dollars, and that you are a public servant that's supposed to serve all of us, including my right to film the interior of your vehicle where visible through the glass of the vehicle, then this would not be the way to approach that. That would not be an effective technique. because all you're doing is creating that adversarial interaction. And so from the ego mitigation perspective, then you would want to go about this very differently. And, you know, there may be different ways that you go about that, including, you know, a bit of flattery, a bit of talking to someone like a human being. You know, when he starts saying, "You're my servant," you're getting into this egoic kind of thing of putting the officer down as beneath you. And they're not going to respond well to that, especially if they're already in a state of egoic consciousness, and now you're kind of one-upping them because you're in this position as the taxpayer and they're the servant and you're within your rights. You aren't. What you're creating is a resentment in the officer that then begins to view the general public, and especially other First Amendment auditors, as negative in their experience of just life in general and doing their duty and their job. So they're not going to gain another level of respect for what you're doing and then apply that to others and begin to become a better officer and maybe a better human being. That's not what's going to happen out of that. So that's my problem with these type of interactions is, in this case, I had a caveat being that there could be another layer here that maybe you're trolling on purpose to test the officers. But I don't think we're there yet as a society. I think testing these officers, I think we already know in most cases how that test is going to go. They're going to fail, which they did here. How badly are they going to fail? Sometimes they fail far worse than they did in that circumstance. You know, thankfully they didn't go like hands-on or get too crazy. But we basically know that our policing force are not a very consciously evolved group, okay? In general. I'm not saying there aren't some cops out there that are very aware and also very much into respecting your constitutional rights and things like that. But for the most part, as we see time and time again on these auditing channels and in other circumstances like the one where that guy was shot and many countless other circumstances, we see that law enforcement is a pretty unconscious group that's motivated by ego and by covering each other's asses and, you know, basically bettering their own circumstance, looking out for their own interests. And so since we know that, and I don't think that now is the time to go around trolling cops to see what their reaction is going to be when we know what it's going to be. And then, yeah, putting them in their place by using constitutional law and then saying, "You're my servant." Okay, good for you, but I don't think you've done society a service and you haven't really taught the police anything, because you've, again, you've failed along the game of ego mitigation to avoid resentment, which is what a huge part of the whole game is avoiding resentment from the other individual, and that is very difficult to do. Not being the boss, not being the source of the negative experience is very hard to do. You have to be extremely creative. So, you know, in some of these auditing situations, I think, you know, one of the top rules of the art of stalking is never being the boss, meaning never being the source of the consequence or the negative experience. One way would be to say, "Hey, I'm hired by someone to do this. I can't stop doing my job. This is how I get paid. This is how I feed my family. I'm sorry." And being able to put the blame off to someone else who isn't there. That way you can go, "Hey man, I get where you're coming from, but this is a legally protected activity. It is constitutionally protected. You know, I'm going to lose my job if I don't, you know, have a little cojones here and fight back." See, there's these tools you have to utilize to play this game, and to get, you know, another person to wake up is probably one of the most challenging and difficult things to do. When you're dealing with someone who isn't awakened, who isn't aware, to get them to become aware that is a truly worthy challenge. And these type of interactions, which we've seen here, and, you know, the one with the kids fishing in the pond, and those type of interactions are not, you know, they're all ego driven. That's what they're about, and no one's becoming more aware. The one where the guy beat up, you know, they jumped the the girl's father. Again, no one's getting more aware there. Nothing positive is coming out of those interactions. That isn't the way that you're going to teach someone a lesson. It isn't working that way. So what you're probably going to teach someone, for instance, with a cop who maybe steps over the line or does something, you're going to teach him how to be more of a criminal. You're going to teach him to be more deceptive with his actions, right? That's a lot of what prison does, right? If we look at what we do when we punish criminals and shame them, what do? They become better, upstanding members of our communities and society? No. I mean, I think time and time again we see that people who go to prison and are shamed and punished and ridiculed and separated from society, they find further ways to be more and more devious criminals. So, I'm not saying that we shouldn't lock people up. I'm saying that, we have to really take a look at how we address what's going on with people, because this resentment is at the foundational level of why people are doing really some of the negative things they're doing. They're harboring a lot of resentment. They're holding on to a lot of grudges. They're angry about things, and they're behaving a certain way. And those police are angry about people filming them because it affects their power, their ability to get away with things. And so they have an entitlement. So you have to address that very delicately. And that wasn't the way to do it. But if you're trolling the cops and you want to show, hey, these people aren't really fit to be public servants and fit to be in that high level of authority and power, then that's an effective way to do that. But I don't think we need to do that. We know that that's the case. So that's kind of my take on that. All right, guys, this is the end of this one. I mean, basically, hopefully, as time goes on, you start to get a sense of what I'm talking about. It actually takes a while for some folks who might be new to the idea that I'm beginning to try and flesh out a bit here. Sometimes it takes a little while to really understand it and then see the ego and its many masks and many faces, and how it is a very contagious and strange aspect of our human psyche. And so through these videos, we get to see it enacted in sort of real form, where we can see it exhibited in interactions between folks on these videos. And so I am trying to give some explanation of what it is we're seeing and how it can be overcome, reach another level, an ability to have interactions with each other that don't lead to negative outcomes like beating people up and shooting people and those type of things. And on a global scale, maybe wars and all of that stuff. So ego is really at the fundamental, foundational level of why we're in this state of conflict often in our lives. And so we're often in a, we're efforting to get someone to be aware and consider our perspective, and that can be really challenging, and sometimes we fall victim to being sucked into the same egoic exchange with someone, and then that can escalate and escalate. In worst case scenarios, it escalates to violence. In other cases, it just ends in bad feelings and resentment and holding grudges, and doesn't do any good for anyone. So it takes a long time to really get an understanding of exactly what I'm talking about. It's very hard to talk about it directly. So we're going to keep doing videos like this. Get a chance, go to psychedelis.com. We are now guaranteeing product purchases through our vendors. If anyone rips you off, you don't end up getting your product, we'll reimburse the cost of that. And if we have hard evidence that the vendor was acting in a shady way, we'll ban them. So, all right, guys, that's it for this one. See you next time. Okay, guys, hopefully you've been liking the content we've been providing so far. We've been covering a lot of different topics here. And, for long form, you're checking us out here on YouTube. Also, you can find us on Rumble for short form. You can find us on Instagram and TikTok at ThePemPod. Also, be sure to check out psychedelis.com. There we're providing a lot of different services. We've actually made further progress on the development of the website, which eventually will be an app. You can find treatment options there, including retreat centers, clinical facilities, individual trip sitters, clinicians, facilitators, integration coaches. We've got all that up now, and then we've got something called the Learning Center where you can go if you don't really know that much about psychedelic therapy or you want to learn something about a particular niche there. We will be including that soon. So go ahead and check out all of those areas there if you guys want, and just happy to be here with you. So hopefully have you here taking in more of our content in the near future. Thanks. It'd be great if you left a like, and also if you'd leave a comment would be awesome. We'd love to interact with you guys in the comments below. Also, if you would like to have me react to a video that you choose and that you think would be a good one for me to take a look at, or even a personal video or request of some sort, you can email us at thepempod@gmail.com, and I'd love to hear from you and interact with you there.